texts are the texts, and I think that the evidence will be clear.
Uh-oh. Oh my God. I should have never been in that courtroom. I don't know who thought it was a good idea for those young ladies to be in that courtroom as their father's life has been put on display. No.
His encounters with Diddy and Cassie. And he talked about the fact that Diddy liked to pleasure himself while watching Daniel and Cassie doing their thing. This was so graphic, apparently. Diddy's 3 daughters twice got up and left the courtroom. He talked about
They thought they were walking into a courtroom to support their father. Instead, they walked straight into a nightmare. As Sean Diddy Combs sat stone-faced, gripping a Bible for the cameras, his 3 daughters sat just feet away. Innocent girls, unknowingly positioned as props in one of the most disturbing trials Hollywood has ever seen. But when the testimony started, even the walls seemed to flinch. Graphic accounts of sex, control, and violence poured out like poison. And before long, those daughters, Chance, Jessie, and Delilah, weren't sitting in quiet support. They were running, shaking, crying, their childhood shattered in real time. And what they heard in that courtroom didn't just ruin the image of their father. It ripped the veil off a much darker legacy, one that's haunted them their whole lives. It was supposed to be a moment of silence, the kind of pause in a courtroom where everything freezes, where truth hangs thick in the air. But what happened instead sent chills down every spine in that building. They ran, not walked, not stormed out in defiance. They fled like something inside that courtroom had broken them wide open. Diddy's daughters, the ones he once paraded as the center of his world, collapsed under the weight of what they heard. Tears streaming, hands shaking, no cameras allowed to catch it, but every reporter in that room would swear it wasn't grief. It was horror. Gone was the image, the glossy Instagram father, the protector, the provider, the man who swore his empire was built for his family. In its place stood a reality too dark to swallow. Allegations that painted a monster, not a mogul. And his daughters? They were forced to hear it all, every graphic word, every accusation, every piece of evidence that shattered the illusion they'd been raised in. Witnesses say one daughter clutched the other so tightly it looked like they might both collapse. The courtroom doors slammed behind them, but their sobs still echoed. In that moment, the myth of the family man crumbled. Not in the tabloids, not in the blogs, but in the eyes of the very children he claimed to protect. This wasn't just a scandal. This was the unraveling of a legacy, live, raw, and in front of the only people who ever truly mattered. Let's be clear, Sean Diddy Combs didn't walk into that courtroom blind. His legal team had briefed him in detail about what was coming. The testimonies would be graphic. Names would be named. Words like depraved, violent, and unforgivable would be used without restraint. This wasn't a trial he could charm his way through. And yet, he showed up holding a Bible in one hand and dragging his daughters behind him with the other. Why? Because it was never about justice. It was about optics. From the moment the allegations gained traction, Diddy's brand went into freefall. Major companies started backing away. Fellow celebrities fell silent. The media stopped calling him a mogul and started calling him a monster. He needed to shift the narrative, and fast. So he did what too many powerful men have done when the walls started to close in. He used his family as a prop. His daughters, Chance, Jessie, and Delilah, became human shields, carefully positioned between the public and the man under fire. Their presence wasn't accidental. It was strategic, deliberate, a visual plea for empathy. Look at me. I'm a father. I'm still a protector. I can't be what they say I am. The courtroom became a stage, and Diddy's daughters were cast as the innocent backdrop to his supposed redemption arc, dressed in modest clothes. Seated with composed faces, their job was clear: help soften the blow of the testimony. Humanize the defendant. Remind the world that he's still a dad. But the illusion cracked the moment the truth started pouring out. Because no amount of PR training can prepare a child for what was said in that room. And no carefully staged photo op can erase the sickening fact. Diddy brought his daughters into a war zone dressed like it was Sunday service. He wanted sympathy, He wanted the cameras to catch the image of a father weathering false accusations with his children by his side. But what the world saw, what they really saw, was something else entirely. A man so desperate to protect his empire, he was willing to sacrifice his own daughter's innocence to do it. You could feel the tension shift the second Daniel Phillips took the stand. No cameras, no smartphones, just silence, and then devastation. Daniel wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't rich, but he was there. And what he witnessed was so disturbing, so methodical, that it didn't just indict a man, it exposed a machine. One designed to humiliate, to manipulate, and to control. His testimony started with the parties. The kind no one gets invited to without being vetted. He described hidden cameras, tiny, embedded in smoke detectors, picture frames, bathroom vents. At first, he thought they were for security. But that illusion broke the night he walked in on a scene that would haunt him forever. A woman, clearly drugged, being filmed without her knowledge. And Diddy? Not stopping it, orchestrating it. He told the court how tapes were cataloged, how certain names, high-profile ones, were marked, stored, traded like currency. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment. It was a system, one that thrived on power imbalances, silence, and fear. Then he mentioned the manipulation, the way women were allegedly coerced with footage they didn't even know existed, threatened into staying quiet, or worse, into staying loyal. People in the gallery gasped. A woman reportedly walked out, visibly shaken. Even the judge shifted in his seat. And yet, front row, trying to stay composed, were Diddy's daughters. Minors, listening to a grown man describe in graphic detail how their father allegedly turned homes into surveillance traps. How he blurred the line between intimacy and exploitation. How, behind the music, the brands, and the family man persona was a voyeur with a camera and a god complex. Witnesses say one of the girls dropped her head. The other grabbed her sister's hand. Whatever they'd been told to expect, it wasn't this. Daniel's voice didn't shake, but the room did. Because this wasn't hearsay. It was firsthand, and it was horrifying. By the time he stepped down, the courtroom wasn't just disturbed. It was broken, and so were the illusions of everyone in it. It's easy to focus on the headlines, the court dates, the shocking testimonies. But once the cameras shut off and the public moves on to the next scandal, the real damage lingers, especially for the ones who never asked to be part of this. For Diddy's daughters, the courtroom wasn't just a legal battlefield. It was psychological warfare. Sources close to the family describe a home now filled with silence. Not peace, silence. The kind that comes after a storm that no one wants to name. The kind where everyone walks on eggshells, pretending they didn't hear what was said in court. Pretending they didn't see their father's image disintegrate before their eyes. Panic attacks became routine. Sleepless nights, sudden tears, flinching when someone brings up the trial. Therapy wasn't a suggestion. It became a necessity. But healing isn't easy when the person you're supposed to feel safe with is the same man at the center of the trauma. And then came the social fallout. Whispers at school. Friends suddenly too busy. Invitations drying up. Teachers giving sympathetic glances while trying not to mention the headlines. These girls weren't just navigating adolescence. They were navigating the public shame of being associated with him. Imagine walking into a classroom knowing your father's face is plastered across news feeds, next to words like abuser, predator, monster. Imagine trying to study for an exam while wondering if people are watching you, not for who you are, but for what your last name means. This wasn't just reputation damage. It was identity damage, emotional erosion, a life divided into before and after. And while Diddy may still have his mansion, his music, his millions, the girls he brought to court as a symbol of innocence, now carry the emotional weight of his sins. No verdict will undo that. No settlement will repair it. Because the true cost of his choices isn't just measured in lawsuits or headlines. It's measured in therapy sessions, in trust issues, in young girls forced to grow up overnight. For years, Kim Porter was a mystery, beautiful, poised, untouchable. She kept the peace. She smiled for the cameras. She raised her kids with grace. But now, in the ugly light of court revelations, her silence feels less like strength and more like survival. And her daughters? They're starting to connect the dots. Every whispered argument behind closed doors. Every time their mother told them, "Daddy's just tired." Every bruise she covered with makeup. Every night she disappeared into a locked room, eyes red, voice hoarse from crying. It's all resurfacing. Testimonies from the trial don't just indict their father, they unravel their childhood. Suddenly, memories that felt confusing now feel sinister. The time Kim abruptly pulled them out of school for a family trip. The time she told them not to open the bedroom door no matter what they heard. The time she disappeared for a few days and came back quieter, more guarded. There was a system in place, one designed to hide the truth. But children notice more than they're given credit for. And now, those fragments are forming a new picture. One of a woman trapped. One of a mother trying to protect her daughters without making enemies inside her own home. One of a ghost, Kim Porter's ghost, haunting every word spoken in court. Her absence is no longer just a tragedy. It's a question mark, a warning, maybe even a smoking gun. The daughters aren't just mourning their father's fall from grace. They're mourning their mother all over again, this time with context, this time with rage, this time with clarity. And maybe that's the cruelest twist of all. Kim died with secrets, but now those secrets are screaming through her daughter's tears. When Cassie Ventura took the stand, the courtroom shifted. Not because people didn't know her story. Her lawsuit had already cracked the illusion, but because this was different. This was in person. This was undeniable. She walked in with a quiet resolve, not a tear in sight. But her voice, measured, steady, carried the weight of years she had been forced to swallow whole. And as she began to recount the beatings, the threats, the surveillance, the twisted cycle of control, something happened in that room that no one was prepared for. Across from her, Diddy's daughters sat frozen, watching a woman describe the very man they called Dad in ways they had never dared to imagine. Cassie wasn't just telling her story. She was telling Kim's. Line after line, her testimony mirrored the shadows of their own memories. The controlling behavior, the locked doors, the strange silences in the house, the bruises hidden under designer sleeves, the way their mother would smile through pain that none of them understood until now. Cassie described things that hit too close, things they had seen. And then came the footage. Raw, graphic, sickening. Clips the court had acquired from security cameras, phones, and hidden recordings. Moments that showed Diddy not as a music mogul, not as a father, but as a man who used fear like currency. One video in particular showed Cassie trying to crawl away after a violent outburst, her face swollen, her cries muffled behind a locked hotel door. The courtroom went still, and then the daughters broke. One reportedly fled the room, sobbing uncontrollably. Another had to be escorted out by court staff, hyperventilating as Cassie's voice echoed behind her. I stayed because I was scared. I left because I finally realized I might not survive. It was a reckoning, not just for Diddy, but for the girls who had spent years in a house where no one said these things out loud. Cassie's testimony didn't just expose the man. It exposed the silence, the patterns, the generational trauma passed down like inheritance. In that moment, the daughters weren't watching a stranger testify. They were watching a mirror speak back to them. And for the first time, the truth wasn't just a possibility. It was a reality too painful to ignore. Let's talk about the performance, because that's exactly what it was. The moment Diddy walked into the courtroom clutching a Bible like it was a shield, the cameras clicked and the narrative began. This wasn't the swaggering mogul from the bad boy era. This was brother love, humble, devout, misunderstood. A man under attack. He wore dark suits, soft eyes, and a face full of regret. And when the press caught him wiping a tear during opening statements, his PR team went into overdrive. They pushed a new image, not predator, but prodigal son. Social media accounts suddenly flooded with quotes about redemption. Paparazzi just happened to catch him praying outside the courthouse steps. A carefully leaked story claimed he'd started attending private Bible studies with trusted spiritual advisors. And just like that, a man accused of sex trafficking, abuse, and decades of manipulation was repackaged into someone we were supposed to forgive. But behind the scenes, the optics were all part of the machine. Insiders say Diddy's crisis management team paid top dollar for media consultants, experts in celebrity rehabilitation. Their goal? Soften the blow, muddy the narrative by time. Sources claim scripts were drafted for every possible outcome. Statements of contrition, coordinated Instagram posts, even sermon-style captions ready to roll out if public backlash hit critical mass. The Bible wasn't about faith. It was about framing, a deliberate symbol designed to sway public perception, especially among older, more conservative audiences who still hold a torch for the 90s icon they thought they knew. And those courtroom tears? Rumor has it, they came right on cue. After a particularly damning testimony, one of his handlers allegedly whispered, "Now would be a good time." This wasn't repentance. This was rebranding. But here's the problem. You can't gospel your way out of decades of silence. You can't pray away years of abuse. You can't rewrite your image when the receipts are this loud. The public is watching. The victims are speaking. And no matter how many Bibles he holds, the truth doesn't need optics. It just needs time. The cover-up was crumbling fast. For years, Diddy had controlled the narrative. He was the mogul, the hit maker, the father figure. Every scandal was either buried, silenced, or spun into a misunderstood headline. But this time, the damage control failed. Because now it wasn't just about Cassie. It was about his daughters. The ones he paraded on red carpets and posted on Instagram in matching outfits like props in his brand of black excellence. The same daughters who once smiled next to him in photos were now making headlines of their own, for all the wrong reasons. Reporters began piecing it together. Courtroom whispers turned into concrete details. One daughter seen hyperventilating outside the courthouse. Another refusing to return to the courtroom after Cassie's testimony. Close family friends leaking that they were emotionally shattered by what they had learned. Then came the moment that truly cracked the illusion. A leaked message, allegedly from one of the daughters to a friend, describing her father as a monster with a God complex, and revealing that they had long suspected something was wrong, but didn't have the words for it until Cassie said it out loud. That's when the public's sympathy snapped. People weren't defending Diddy anymore. They were rallying behind the children. The same public that once praised his girl dad. Energy was now rewatching every clip with new eyes. The forced smiles, the performative parenting, the eerily perfect public image. It all looked like a mask now. Online forums exploded. TikToks analyzing old interviews went viral. One in particular showed Diddy interrupting his daughters mid-sentence, correcting their tone, even coaching their answers on camera. And suddenly the internet got it. This wasn't just a man accused of abusing women. This was a man who had turned his own children into pawns in a long-running illusion of perfection. A facade built on silence, shame, and performance. The fall from grace wasn't subtle, it was seismic. No amount of nostalgia could save him now. No Bible, no rebrand, no celebrity endorsements. Because when the daughters broke, so did the last thread of public trust. And in the ashes of the Diddy empire, the world finally saw what had been hidden in plain sight. Not just a broken family, but a legacy of pain disguised as power. This wasn't just scandal. This was emotional wreckage. The kind that leaves scars no spotlight can hide. By the time the trial reached its final stretch, Diddy's brand wasn't just damaged. It was obliterated. The headlines weren't about music anymore. They weren't about fashion, parties, or legacy. They were about trauma. And in the center of it all were his daughters. Girls who had once been symbols of his reinvention. The polished Instagram moments, the red carpet smiles, the birthday tributes wrapped in expensive bows. But now, they were symbols of the lie. Because no matter what the PR team pushed, no matter how many statements were released or photos were curated, the question lingered in the air like smoke. What kind of father puts his daughters in that room? That courtroom, thick with testimonies of assault, control, humiliation, where graphic details of abuse played out like a horror film. And they were in the front row. Insiders say they weren't just present. They were encouraged to be, told to support their father, to show unity. But behind closed doors, the daughters were reportedly pleading to leave. Sources close to the family claimed one broke down in a private hallway. Another allegedly told her aunt, "I don't know who he is anymore." And that's the damage no PR strategy can spin. Trust? Shattered. Innocence? Lost. The illusion of the doting father? Gone. Because what Diddy didn't realize was this. In trying to save his legacy, he sacrificed the only thing that mattered. His daughter's safety, their peace, their truth. And when the world saw that, the final blow landed. Not from a judge, not from a jury, but from public conscience. You could survive bad headlines. You can survive lawsuits. But when your own children are seen as collateral damage in your cover-up, there's no coming back. Not as a man, not as a father, not as a legend. The courtroom lights may dim, but the spotlight on Diddy burns brighter than ever. Legal proceedings are far from over. Investigations continue. More witnesses, more footage, more names, and each revelation chips away at a legacy once untouchable. But here's the twist. This is no longer just his story. It's theirs now. Diddy's daughters, once background figures in a carefully curated empire, have become the emotional epicenter of a spiraling scandal. No longer shielded, no longer silent, they are caught between loyalty and survival, legacy and truth. Will they speak out? Will they turn away? Or will they, too, be pulled under by the very empire they were raised to protect? One thing is certain, this story isn't over. And the next chapter might not be written by Diddy at all.